Chapter 40. In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that the city was smitten, in the selfsame day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me there. In the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel, and set me down upon a very high mountain, whereon was as it were the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me there, and behold, there was a man, whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with your eyes, and hear with your ears, and set your heart upon all that I shall show you. For to the intent that I might show them unto you art you brought here. Declare all that you seest to the house of Israel. And behold, a wall on the outside of the house round about, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long, of a cubit and a handbreadth each. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. Then came he unto the gate which looks towards the east, and went up the steps thereof, and he measured the jamb of the gate, and 1 reed broad, and the other jamb 1 reed broad. And every cell was 1 reed long, and 1 reed broad, and the space thereof, the cells, was 5 cubits, and the jambs of the gate, by the porch of the gate, within, were 1 reed. And he measured also the porch of the gate toward the house 1 reed. And he measured the porch of the gate 8 cubits, and the post thereof 2 cubits, and the porch of the gate was inward. And the cells of the gate eastward were 3 on this side, and 3 on that side. They 3 were of 1 measure, and the post had 1 measure, on this side and on that side. And he measured the breadth of the entry of the gate 10 cubits, and the length of the gate 13 cubits. And a border before the cells was 1 cubit on this side, and a border 1 cubit on that side, and the cells 6 cubits on this side, and 6 cubits on that side. And he measured the gate from the roof of the one cell to the roof of the other, a breadth of 25 cubits, door against door. And he measured also post of 60 cubits, and even unto the post of the court in the gates round about, and from the forefront of the gate of the entrance unto the forefront of the inner porch of the gate were 50 cubits. And there were narrow windows to the cells and to their post within the gate round about, and likewise to the arches, and windows were round about inward, and upon each post were palm trees. Then brought he me into the outer court, and lo, there were chambers, and a pavement made for the court round about. 30 chambers were upon the pavement, and the pavement was by the side of the gates, corresponding unto the length of the gates, even the lower pavement. Then he measured the breadth from the forefront of the lower gate unto the forefront of the inner court, without 100 cubits eastward, as also northward. And the gate of the outer court that looked toward the north, he measured the length thereof, and the breadth thereof, and the cells thereof were 3 on this side, and 3 on that side. And the post thereof, and the arches thereof, were after the measure of the gate. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And the windows thereof, and the arches thereof, and the trees thereof, were after the measure of the gate that looks toward the east, and it was ascended by 7 steps, and the arches thereof were before them. And there was a gate to the inner court, over against the outer gate, northward as also eastward, and he measured from gate to gate 100 cubits. And he led me toward the south, and behold, a gate toward the south, and he measured the post thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And there were windows in it, and in the arches thereof round about, like those windows. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And there were 7 steps to go up to it, and the arches thereof were round about them, and it had palm trees, one on this side, and another on that side, upon the posts thereof. And there was a gate to the inner court, toward the south, and he measured from the gate toward the south 100 cubits. And then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate according to these measures, and the cells thereof, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And there were windows in it, and in the arches thereof round about. It was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And there were arches round about 25 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad. And the arches thereof were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were upon the post thereof, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me into the inner court toward the east, and he measured the gate according to the measures, and the cells thereof, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And there were windows therein, and the arches thereof round about it was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And the arches thereof were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were upon the posts thereof, on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it according to these measures, the cells thereof, the posts thereof, and the arches thereof. And there were windows therein round about. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And the posts thereof were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were upon the posts thereof, on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And a chamber with the entry thereof was by the posts of the gates. There was the burnt offering to be washed. And in the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side, and 2 tables on that side, to slay thereon the burnt offering, and the sin offering, and the guilt offering. And on one side without, as one goeth up to the entry of the gate toward the north, were 2 tables. On the other side of the porch of the gate were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables on that side, by the side of the gate, 8 tables whereupon to slay the sacrifices. Moreover, there were 4 tables for the burnt offering, of hewn stone, 1 cubit and a half long, 1 cubit and a half broad, and 1 cubit high, whereupon to lay the instruments wherewith the burnt offerings and the burnt offering and the sacrifice are slain. And the slabs, a handbreadth long, were fastened within round about, and upon the tables was to be the flesh of the offering. And without the inner gate were chambers for the guard in the inner court, which was at the side of the north gate, and their prospect was toward the south, one at the side of the east gate having the prospect toward the north. And he said unto me, This chamber, whose prospect is toward the south, is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the house. The chamber whose prospect is toward the north is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who from among the sons of Levi come near to the Lord to minister unto him. And he measured the court 100 cubits long, and 100 cubits broad, 4 square, and the altar was before the house. And then he brought me to the porch of the house, and he measured each post of the porch, 5 cubits on this side, 5 cubits on that side, and the breadth of the gate was 3 cubits on this side, and 3 cubits on that side. The length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the breadth 11 cubits, and it was by steps that it was ascended, and there were pillars by the posts, one on this side, and another on that side. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. And we'll remember yesterday we made an end of this, of Gog, that false prophet, and the end of it was coming. Now we're going to move on, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through the temple, even the last temple that will be built. This is the great temple of God, and we're going to pick it up here now in verse 1. In the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year, after that the city was smitten, in the selfsame day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me thither. In the 25th year of our captivity, and 5 is grace, this and 20th is redemption, because it's the witness of the law. 2 tens is to witness of the law, and it's that of the greater understanding, this year made of many days, of our captivity, even this captivity of confusion that we have been in the beginning of the year, and in the beginning of the greater understanding, in the 10th day of the month, and the 10th is a portion of the law that has been portioned out, this law that's been portioned out for understanding even, that day of the month. And the month is the lesser light. It's a period of time ruled by the moon. It is a lesser light that God gave to rule over the darkness. And in the 14th year after the city was smitten, and that city that was smitten, we'll remember, was Jerusalem. The messenger did come and tell us at this 14th year, and this 14th is 10 and 4, and the law is God's work, because 4 is the work of God, and 10 is the law, and the law is God's work that's portioned out for the greater understanding, and that's what we're going to find in the temple, that God wants you to understand that God, this is all God's work. God done all this, see, and God established it for redemption, that he could make a witness, that he could make an example in the earth. He's God. There is no other. And it would be in the self-same day that the city of Jerusalem that would be smitten. We'll find out as we go through here. This self-same day, in this self-same understanding, the hand, the work of God was upon me, and he brought me there, even to that place. 2, in the visions of God brought he me into the land of Israel, and set me down upon a very high mountain, whereon was as it were the frame of a city on the south. And these visions, these perceptions of God that brought he me into this land of Israel, into the land of those, even all those that have contended with God, that have tried to go against God's law. And he set me down upon a very high mountain, and this mountain is a high place. He set me down on that high place, whereon was as it were the frame of a city on the south. Even this frame of a city, or as it were a picture of a city, that was on the south. And the south is a place that's parched, that was parched before. This south represents that place where we can witness that it was parched before, because that's what it's about. God has made himself even known through his work and through the witness of his work. 3, and he brought me there, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And he brought me there, even we'll find that this was within Jerusalem. And behold, there was a man, or whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, and this brass, we'll find, has been referred to many times as this cold darkness. And brass is nekoshet, and what it means is it's something that's mixed in there to make it shine. This the mixing of copper and zinc, and what it does is it produces brass, and it's something that appears to be gold. But this brass, and anytime I hear the word brass, I'm always reminded of the brass serpent that Moses that God told Moses to make and hold up over the people, when all the fiery serpents were biting them and destroying them, and God said, if you'll look to that brass serpent there, you'll live. But of course later on they started worshiping it, and it had to be destroyed. But anyway, this brass, this cold darkness I refer to it as, with a line of flax in his hand, and in his hand this is to be his work, and this line of flax, this line, the word is patil, and it's a twisted cord. It's a cord that's been twisted up for its strength. See, anytime we twist something, it makes it stronger, and it makes a line. And what that is what he's going to make it straight with when he lays out the edges of the building and lines it all up and lays it out. A measuring reed and a measuring reed. And a measuring reed is a stick. It's a staff. It's a length of pole that is used to determine a set measurement. And he stood in the gate. And this gate, it is always in representation, see, of that place of judgments, this place of questionings, these place of answers, these places where they would gather for judgment. 4. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with your eyes, and hear with your ears, and set your heart upon all that I shall show you, for to the intent that I might show them unto you art you brought there. Declare all that you seest to the house of Israel. And the man said unto me, Son of man, one who heard the word even in the beginning, behold with your eyes, behold, look and see with your eyes. Try to perceive these things, even with your understandings, and hear with your ears. Hear with your ears what these things mean, and set your heart, set your understandings upon all that I shall show you. For the intent that I might show these things to you are you brought here. Declare all that you see to the house of Israel. Declare all that you see. Declare all these things that you perceived, and to the house of Israel, even these things that you hear. Declare unto those, even all those that contend with mighty one, who God has scattered out in all the earth. 5. And behold, a wall on the outside of the house round about, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long, of a cubit and a handbreadth each. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. And behold, look and see, listen, a wall on the outside of the house round about. And there was a wall, even this enclosure on the outside. It was around all the house. This we'll find this building round about. And in the man's hand, and in the man's work, was a measuring reed, or a reed to measure with, and it was of 6 cubits long. And this 6 cubits, 6 is always represents man's work. This 6 days shalt you do your work, even. And this, because we're going to find there'll be a great witness of man's work and what it is being used for. 6 cubits, and 6 is the measurement. It's a measurement that's determined and measured out. It's preset. Long. And that's going to be the length of it, see. This work of man's measured out for the length of it, of a cubit and a hand's breadth each. And this is how long this reed's going to be. This measuring stick that he has in his works, it is 6 of these measurements. In a cubit and a hand's breadth. And that hand's breadth, means represents your work, that what you work. And your breath, and the breadth is that what it's used for. So and the width of it. This is the width, and that means what it's used for. That will determine the width. And so this is what your work is used for. This work of man and its measurement of its length is used for this. So this reed is that. See, it represents that measurement even of the work of man and what it's going to be used for. So he measured the breadth of the building, 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. So he measured the breadth of this building and this structure. We're going to find out it's a small structure even, and it was 1 reed, and the height was 1 reed. So we start out in this little structure here, and we're going to find out this stick that he's got in his hand, this work, is we're going to translate it to a 12 feet, and because that's approximately what it is. This 12 feet, we're going to start out in a very small structure even, 1 reed and in height, and that's the height is what determines it. See, what it is determines it's for. So it depends on what is determined by it is how high, or it relates to what it's being used for. It depends on how high the structure is, and we're going to find out it's all one measurement. It's one use. It has one purpose, so to speak. 6. Then he came unto the gate which looks toward the east, and went up the steps thereof, and he measured the jamb of the gate 1 reed broad, and the other jamb 1 reed broad. So then he came unto this gate which looks toward the east, this gate, this place of judgment even, which looks toward the east, toward the place of enlightenment, towards where the sun comes up and the day comes forth, and he went up the steps thereof. So he goes up the steps. He started out lower, and he goes up the steps thereof, and that's to go up towards this gate. And he measured the jamb of the gate, and it was 1 reed broad, and the other jamb was 1 reed broad. And he measured the jamb, and that's the post on each side of it that makes up the opening of the gate, and it determines the measurements. And this jamb of the gate was 1 reed broad, and it had 1 measurement for its use, and the other jamb was 1 reed broad. It had 1 measurement for its use. So we find there are 2 jambs, and this represents, this 2 witnesses, these 2 things that are going to support this judgment. 7. And every cell was 1 reed long and 1 reed broad, and the space between the cells was 5 cubits, and the jambs of the gate by the porch of the gate within were 1 reed, and every cell was 1 reed long. And this word cell in King James, this word is chamber, but we're going to see there's this little difference. But this word is tal, and it means this chamber, or what it is a little chamber that's within the gate, and it comes from this word to mark out or to point out, because what he is he's one who stands there in that we can point out on each side to. It's like a guard chamber, we're going to see, was in the gates, and that's what it represents. That little cell there was 1 reed long and 1 reed broad. So it had 1 measurement too. Each one on each side had 1 measurement. It was 1 reed long and 1 reed broad. It had 1 use and 1 purpose. We're going to see as we go through. This house is it's equal both ways, any way we look at it. And the space between the cells was 5 cubits, and the jambs of the gate by the porch of the gate within were 1 reed. And this distance, the space that's between these cells, or these little chambers, was 5 cubits. And because there's a space now between these cells, or these places of guard, that's for grace is measured out. See, there's a place of grace measured out between them, and the jambs of the gate, or the post of this judgment, by the porch of the gate within were 1 measurement, 1 reed. So, and this word porch is ulam, and what it is it's a tied together. It's something that's attached to it, and it's a little entryway that you have to go in or under to enter through. 8. And he measured the porch of the gate toward the house was 1 reed. And he measured also, now this porch of the gate, this is that porch, that ulam, that which is attached to it, the entering in of it, this place of judgment, toward the house was 1 reed. It had 1 measurement as well. 9. Then measured he the porch of the gate, 8 cubits, and the post thereof 2 cubits, and the porch of the gate was inward. So this was that porch of the gate, that entering in, that was inward. And this porch that's attached to this, the entering in of the gate, this place of judgment, is 8 cubits. And it's a new beginning. 8 means it's a new beginning. See, there's a new beginning in the measurement of it. So that was the reason the porch was attached to, that as you pass under it, there might be a new beginning, and the posts thereof were 2 cubits. And this is the post on either side, because there are 2. Now witness the measurement of it all. These 2 cubits, that's what it means. This, because for a witness now is it measured out. And the porch of the gate was inward, and that's the porch of the gate that was attached to the judgment was inward, or towards the inside. 10. And the cells of the gate eastward were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. They were of 1 measure, and the post had 1 measure on this side and on that side. 10. And the cells of the gate were eastward. And these cells, these things which we can point out of the gates of judgment, these things we can point out in judgment, are eastward. They're towards enlightenment, this understanding that comes from God when the sun comes up. And they 3 on this side, and then they're complete on this side and complete on that side, and made plain. Side means this faced, it's made plain. See? And that's what it means. It's complete. It's made plain, this side and that side. And they were of 1 measure. They had 1 measurement. There 1 purpose for them both. And the post had 1 measure on this side and on that side. And the post, these 2 things that support, these witnesses that support, have 1 measure. There's 1 purpose for them both. 11. And he measured the breadth of the entry of the gate, and there were 10 cubits. And the length of the gate, 13 cubits. And he measured now the breadth, this for the use of it, that was the entering in of the judgment, and this that it would be used for, to enter in through the judgment, was 10 cubits. And 10 is the law, and cubits is the measurement of it. And that's what it's for. That's the use of it. For the laws measured out there in the length of the gate was 13 cubits, and that the law could be complete. 10 and 3. See, the law is completed in this measurement of the law in judgment. 12. And a border before the cells, 1 cubit on this side, and a border 1 cubit on that side, and the cells 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side. And a border, this outline before the cells, this outline of those things which we can point out, had 1 measurement. In the beginning, measured out. This was 1 measurement on this side, made plain, and a border, outlined, there it is. 1 cubit on that side, outlined, there it is. And the cells, 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side. And it was the work of man, laid out and measured out on this side, made plain and known, and the work of man laid out and measured and made plain on that side. It's a witness. There it is. 13. And he measured the gate from the roof of the one cell to the roof of the other, a breadth of 25 cubits, door against door. And he set the measurement, the gate of judgment, from the roof of the one cell, and that's the roof, that's the top of it, the upper height of it, to the roof of the other, the height of it, a breadth of 5, the use of grace and redemption, this group of grace, and to witness the law and the measurements of it, door against door, opening against opening, once again, equal, 14. He made also posts of 60 cubits, even unto the post of the court in the gates round about. He made also these posts, all these that support 60, 320, see, complete redemption, or completely witness the law in its measurement. Even the posts, these things that support, all these supports of the court in the gates round about. These gates, all these gates round about within this court. And this court we'll find it's like an expanse, a larger place, even in the opening up. The word is chetzer, and it's like a larger. It's still within an enclosure, though. See, you're still within the enclosure, but it's even we'll find out that it's the place even where they will hear a warning round about in this court, and we'll find out what these are for in just a second. 15. And from the forefront of the gate of the entrance unto the forefront of the inner porch of the gate were 50 cubits. And here's the measurement of that opening. And from the forefront of the gate, where it begins, from the beginning of this judgment, of the entering in unto the beginning of the inner porch, see, this inner porch, this thing that's attached to the entering in of the next gate, we'll find out. This was 50 cubits. This 50 cubits. 5 and 10, because grace is the law being measured out in that distance. We're going to find out, see. We're within and we're traveling, and it's getting larger as we go out. 16, there were narrow windows to the cells and to their posts within the gate round about, and likewise to the arches, and the windows were round about inward, and upon each post were palm trees. And these narrow windows, this word narrow here, utam, and what it means is it's shut. It's closed up. These windows are there, but they're closed. And these arches, and likewise to the arches, because we'll find, see, there was windows in these arches. And these arches, this word is elam. And what it is these strengthenings. They're not necessarily these arches that this picture wants you to paint here, but they're strengthenings, even upward. And because we'll find out it's the upward portion of the gate as you go through. Even these understandings, and that's what these higher understandings as we go upward, we find out. And windows are round about inward. Upon each post were palm trees. And upon these posts now, as we go on through the expanse, are these palm trees. And these palm trees palm trees represent this place to kind of take a break, but because they represent a teaching, so to speak, upon the post, or upon these two supports. 17. Then brought he me into the outer court, and lo, there were chambers, and a pavement made for the court round about. 30 chambers were upon the pavement. Then he brought me to the outer court. Now we're all the way in the outer court, and lo, there were chambers. There was these chambers, these liksha, see, because these are a little different than the cells. This word is lishka, and what these are they're just basically like rooms, and these rooms are those things very similar to the cells, which we can point out and make examples of. And there's a pavement. This pavement is rispa. And this pavement is like a lighted. It's like a light. It's like a lighted thing. And that even before these chambers, made for the court round about, 30 chambers were upon the light, were upon this pavement, or this way that we can make known this lighted way, these chambers were upon it. And there was 30 of these chambers, 3 tens. 3 tens is the complete law outlined or made known. 18. And the pavement was by the side of the gates, corresponding unto the length of the gates, even the lower pavement. And the pavement was by the side of the gate, and these lights were by the sides of judgments, corresponding unto the length of the judgments. So the whole way was lit, even this lower pavement, even this lower pavement, this lower lighting, this even that place of the flesh, the lower understanding of it. 19. Then he measured the breadth from the forefront of the lower gate unto the forefront of the inner court, without 100 cubits eastward, as also northward. He measured the breadth from the forefront, or the beginning of the lower gate, unto the beginning of the inner court, without, outside, 100 cubits eastward, as also northward. And he measured this determined the breadth, or the use of it, from the beginning of this lower gate, this lower judgment, this judgment even in the flesh, unto the beginning of the inner court, without, outside of it, on the outside of that gate. We'll find out the forefront from the beginning of the inner court to the outer court, outside, was 100 cubits eastward, as also northward. As we go on outward, you see it keeps getting bigger and bigger. This measurement, this from the inner court, from the beginning of it, was 100 cubits. And that is for judgment. 100 is judgment in measurement. And that's what it was for, to be for judgment measured out. Eastward as also northward, to the enlightenment, as well as also towards those ones for judgment. Because that's what comes out of the north, that from the north, even the judgments, where God stores his treasures. 20. And the gate of the outer court that looked toward the north, he measured the length thereof, and the breadth thereof. And the gate that of the outer court, and the gate, that place of judgment, even on the outer court, once again, that Chetzar, that enclosure, that place where it's what we're talking about is there's another walled area. It's another enclosed area all the way around. See, all the way around us, that look toward the north, and that's that gate of that enclosure that's all the way around us, looks towards the north, looks towards this judgment. And he measured the length thereof and the breadth thereof, and he measures out, see, what it's going to be used for and how long it's going to be used. 21. And the cells thereof were 3 on this side, and 3 on that side, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof were after the measure of the first gate. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And as we go through the gate, we'll find that it's just like all the others. It looks just like all the others gates, because they all have one similarity. And the cells thereof were 3 on this side. They was complete, see, and made plain. And 3 on that side. It was complete and made plain. And the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, these things that support it, and all these understandings that go upward, after the measure of the first gate. So they're all just like the first gate, the beginning of judgment. It's all the same. It's all one great example, God says, that he's making. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the length, that's how long, that's its length, is the 50 cubits, is for the grace of law to be measured out. That's why it's there. And the breadth 25 cubits. And the reason it's there, the reason it's going to be used, is for grace and redemption being measured out. Grace, that you might witness the law being measured out. God said, I set it there for a witness. It's all for a witness, God says, that you might know he's God. 22. And the windows thereof, and the arches thereof, and the palm trees thereof, were after the measure of the gate that looks toward the east, and it was ascended by 7 steps, and the arches thereof were before them. And the windows thereof, these openings, and the arches, these understandings that go upward thereof, and the palm trees, these places of teachings, these teachings thereof were after the measure of the gate that looks toward the east, after the measure of this gate, that place of judgment that looks towards enlightenment. And it was ascended by 7 steps, and you went up to it by these 7 steps, these 7 steps that go upward, even this way of ascension. And these 7 means perfection. It is perfection, or for the accomplishment of, and the arches thereof were before them. And these arches and these higher understandings as they go up were there before these steps. And there was a gate, 23, to the inner court over against the outer court, northward as also eastward, and he measured from gate to gate 100 cubits. And there was a gate toward the inner court, even against the other gate. And as you go through this gate, there's another gate. It's over straight across from this gate to the inner court, over against the other gate. And it's that gate of judgment, once again, of the inner court, of that place that's inward that we can point out. Then it's over against this other gate. It's right beside this other place of judgment that's northward as also eastward. So it's just like the other. There's another set of gates over there, northward as well as eastward. This place of judgment even, as well as towards this place of enlightenment. And he measured from gate to gate was 100 cubits. So we're going to measure once again from this gate over to that other gate. And that place of judgment to that place of judgment is 100 cubits, because that was the purpose of this space we're going to find, this outer court, was for judgment. And that's what it represents, and that's the measurement of it. 24. And he led me toward the south, and behold, a gate toward the south. And he measured the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And he led me toward the south, or toward this place of witness, this parched place that he had parched and made a witness of. And behold, a gate toward the south. And behold, there's another gate, a place of judgment there towards the south, even that place that he made a witness. And he measured the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And he measured it out, the posts thereof, these things that support it, and all the teachings, all these understandings that go upward, according to these same measures. And these same measures that we've just went through. 25. And there were windows in it, and the arches thereof were round about. Like those windows, the length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And there were windows, and these openings were in it, or this that lets the light shine in, were in it, in these arches, and all the way around. And these teachings that go upward, there was understandings in them, like those windows, those ways to let light in. The length was 50 cubits, and that's grace of the law, see, in its measurement. And the breadth, the use of it, was for grace and the redemption measured out. And it's all the same. It's equal, see. It's for grace in the law, and for grace is to witness the law. See, it's the same thing. 26. And there was 7 steps to go up to it, and the arches thereof were before them, and it had palm trees on this side, and another on that side upon the post thereof. And there were 7 steps, and it was for the perfection, as we find, that to go up to it. And the arches and all these understandings that go upward thereof were before them, before these steps that ascend, and it had palm trees. It had teachings on one side that were made plain, and on the other side the posts thereof were made plain, because see, God divided on both, in both places with the law. See, and those are those things that are made plain. How God divides with the law, showing grace of how He divides with the law, and you can witness this. 27. And there was a gate to the inner court toward the south, and there was a gate, a place of judgment, towards the inner court, or towards that place where we can point out inward, towards the south, even that place of witness. He measured from gate to gate toward the south 100 cubits. And he measured once again, gate to gate, judgment to judgment, towards this place of witness. Judgment was measured out, see, even the same as the other, because that's what God is doing. He's laying out His judgment, and He's measuring it all out, and it's equal in proportion. 28. Then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate according to these measures. Then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate. So back through the south gate, back to the inner court, this place of witness, this place of judgment. And he measured the south gate, that place of witness and judgment, according to these measures. The same measures that we've been talking about. It's going to be for the grace of the law, and for the grace that you can witness the law. 29. And the cells thereof, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And there were windows in it, and the arches thereof round about, and it was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And there it is. See, and it's the same thing. And these ways, this enlightenment that comes in through these higher understandings, are the same as the others. It's all equal. Grace in the law is measured out for its length until it's known, and grace to witness the law, or grace and in redemption, is measured out for its use. It is equal. 30. And there were arches round about, 25 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad. And now we have the measurements of these arches, or the measurements of these teachings that go upward all around, and therefore grace 5, and redemption measured out in the length. See, it's measured out in the length, and 5 cubits broad. And for the grace of the law is their use. So it's just the same thing the other way around, see, because grace in the law is the length, grace in the law is what it's used for. Redemption, to witness the law, is the grace. That's how long it lasts, and that's what it's used for. 31. And the arches thereof were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were upon the posts thereof, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And these arches, these understandings that go upward, were towards the outer court, were outward, went on outward. And palm trees were upon the posts thereof, and the going up to it had 8 steps. We're going to go on up now, 8 steps more, and we'll find this is 15 in total, and 15 is the grace. The law is grace. See, these 8 steps, though, this is going to be, there's going to be a new beginning now in the ascension. 32. And he brought me into the inner court toward the east, and he measured the gate according to the measures. And he brought me now to this inner court, this place where we can point out inwardly, toward the east, towards enlightenment. And he measured the gate, this measurement of judgment, according to these measurements. 33. And the sails thereof, and the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, according to these measures. And there were windows therein, and the arches thereof round about. It was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And these sails, once again, these sails that we can point out, these things that we can point out and make known, and the posts thereof, and there's everything that supports it, all these that we've been through, supports all of it. The arches thereof, all these higher understandings of it, according to these measures, according to what's laid out. And there were windows therein. these ways of enlightenment for coming in, and the arches thereof, and the higher teachings of it, all around, was for the grace of the law measured out in its length, and for the grace of redemption was measured out in its use. 34. And the arches thereof were toward the outer court, and the palm trees were upon the posts thereof, on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And the arches thereof were toward the outer court, just like the other, and the palm trees were upon the posts, just like the other. All these teachings were upon these things that are made, that hold it up thereof. On this side made plain, and on that side they were made plain. And the going up to it had 8 steps, and the going up, even once again, had a new beginning. It was for the new beginning as it ascended. 35. And he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it according to these measures. And he brought me to the north gate, even that gate of judgment, that great gate of judgment where God stores his treasures of it even. And he measured it according to these measures, and he laid it out according to this. 36. The cells thereof, the posts thereof, the arches thereof, and their windows therein round about. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And the cells and the rooms, these things that we can point out, these things that hold it up, and all the higher, these understandings that go upward, and all these windows, these things that let the light shine in, these ways of enlightenment coming in, round about it. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. So once again, it's laid out used for this grace in the laws measuring. The grace of the law is the measurement of it, and the use of it is for the grace and redemption measured out. And once again, that's what it was all used for. Both ways, it's a witness of God. 37. And the posts thereof were toward the outer court, and palm trees were upon the posts thereof, on this side and on that side, and the going up to it had 8 steps. And the posts thereof were toward the outer court, or that those things that support were outward, towards that outward place we can point out. And the palm trees, these teachings, were upon the post, these things that support it, on this side made plain, and on that side they were made plain. And the going up to it had a new beginning in its ascension as well, because it has one purpose. See, that we can get closer to God, we can have understanding more of how God works. 38. And a chamber with the entry thereof was by the posts of the gates. There was the burnt offering to be washed. And a chamber, so there's that chamber, that liksha, this room, that we can see, and this entry thereof was by the post of the gates, and the going in of it now was by the supports of these judgments, and there was the burnt offering to be washed, and there was that which was to be offered, was to be washed, and that was to be made clean and washed before it enters in, before it comes in. 39. And in the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side, and 2 tables on that side, to slay thereon the burnt offering, and the sin offering, and the guilt offering. And the porch of the gate were 2 tables. And within that which is attached to the gate, that place of judgment, were these 2 tables. Now witness these 2 tables. These tables is shukam, and what it means is it stretches out before. It's that which stretches out before, and it's before you. These 2 tables, these witnesses now, that have been made plain on each side, and on that side, and there's to slay thereon the burnt offering and the sin offering, these things that are going to pass through the fire, these things that are offered up in sin, and these things that are because of your sin, for your guilt. That's what it represents, that where they'll be slain. 40. And on the one side, outside, as one goeth up to the entry of the gate toward the north, there were 2 tables. On the other side of the porch of the gate were 2 tables. And on the one side, see, on the one side of this gate, outside, as one comes up to the entry of the gate from outside, toward the north, towards this place of judgment, were these two tables. And two tables, witness now these two things stretched forth, and on the other side of the porch of the gate were two tables. Now on both sides, see, of this thing that is attached to judgment was the witness of this that is stretched forth, that God has done, so that you can witness now, because there's four tables. We're getting ready to find out. 41. Four tables were on this side, and four tables on that side, by the side of the gate, 8 tables, whereupon to slay the sacrifices. These four tables, now this is the work of God that stretched forth, see? The work of God that was stretched forth on this side, that made plain, and the work of God stretched forth on that side, made plain. By the side of the gate, by the side made plain by judgment, these 8 tables are these new beginnings being stretched forth, whereupon to slay these sacrifices, these ones that have been sacrificed, even for your understanding. 42. Moreover, there were 4 tables for the burnt offering. Moreover, and also there were 4 tables for the burnt offerings. These 4, work of God being stretched forth for the burnt offerings, for these that had to pass through the fire of hewn stone. And this hewn stone, hewn is the word is gazit, and it's a cut. It means to cut it, or to cut off, to sever, even that which was established for it, that to be cut off and to be severed, because this is what the offerings represent, that which is divided up. And these 4 tables, this work of God, a cubit, a measurement and a half long. A measurement and then a division of measurement was the length of it, and a cubit and a half broad, and a measurement that was divided. See, this measurement even that's divided was the use of it. So it was for that this measurement could be divided by a measurement that divides, and then we'll see as this one divides up. This is the offering being made to God, and 1 cubit high, and 1 cubit, the beginning of its measurement, was the height of it all, whereupon to lay the instruments wherewith the burnt offering and the sacrifice are slain. And this will be the place where they lay these things, that these instruments even that that they do slay the burnt offering, that those things that pass through the fire and the sacrifice are slain. 43. And the slabs, a hand's breadth long, were fastened within and round about, and upon the table was to be the flesh of the offering. And these slabs, this slab, these, and I believe the King James says hooks, and that's probably a little closer than the slabs, but this word is shephah, and this, what it is these little pegs. They're pegs, and probably were sharpened up a little bit on the points of them, because what they do is they hold. See, they're used to hold, and they're a hand's breadth wide, so that the work is the use of them. See, your work is the use of them. They're fastened within round about upon this table, and upon the tables. See, upon the tables, those things that are stretched forth, was to be the flesh offering, and that's what they do. They hold the flesh in place, so it can be, we'll see, separated and divided for the offering. 44. And without the inner gate, and outside the inner gate, were chambers for the guard in the inner court, and it was at the side of the north gate, and their prospect was toward the south. One at the side of the east gate, having the prospect toward the north. And without the inner court, on the outside of this inner place of judgment, were chambers, these things that we can point out, for the guard in the inner court. And even these ones that guard the inner things that we can point out, even the inner expanse, this inner place, which was at the side of the north gate, which was at that place of judgment, made plain, where God in judgment made plain even that judgment. And their prospect was toward the south. They looked now toward the south. They looking towards that place where we can witness, that parched place from before. One, the side of the east gate, having the prospect toward the south, and the one over at the east gate having his prospect or looking toward the north. This one over in the east, this enlightenment, this place of enlightenment, having his prospect looking towards judgment. 45, and he said unto me, this chamber, whose prospect is toward the south, is for the priest, the keepers of the charge of the house. And this chamber, whose prospect is toward the south, is for the priest, the keepers of the charge of the house. And these are the ones, we'll find out, that have witnessed the judgment of God, that have witnessed the parched place, that has witnessed. These are for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the house. These ones who will keep the ordinances and keep the laws of the house. 46, and the chamber whose prospect is towards the north is for the priest, the keepers of the charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who from among the sons of Levi come near to the Lord to minister unto him. And the chamber, or that which we can point out, who's looking towards judgment, is for the priest. And these priests, these keepers of the charge of the altar, where they will slay the sacrifice, these keepers of it are the sons of Zadok. And Zadok is the righteous. Zadok means these are the just. These are the ones who kept the law, even from the beginning, because they are the ones who witnessed the judgments. They are among the sons of Levi. And Levi is the joiner. Levi is the one who joined together. Levi is the one who joined together the two sticks into his hand, or into his work, for this one purpose, to show you that it's both the witness, now the judgment of God. 47, and he measured the court 100 cubits long, and 100 cubits broad, 4 square, and the altar was before the house. And he measured the court, and he determined the place and the measurement of the expanse, and it was judgment measured out in its length, and judgment measured out in its use. It was 4 square. It was the work of God made known. And the altar was before the house, and that altar, that place where the sacrifices are offered, was before the house, or God's house. Then he brought me to the porch of the house, and measured each post of the porch 5 cubits on this side, and 5 cubits on that side, and the breadth of the gate was 3 cubits on this side, and 3 cubits on that side. Then he brought me to the porch, that thing which was attached to the house, and he measured each post, those things that support it, and this was the measurement of those that support it, of the porch, that which is attached, was grace measured out on this side, made plain, and grace measured out on that side, made plain. And the use of it, the breadth of it, of the judgment, was complete measurements. This was the complete measurement of it on this side, and the complete measurement of it on that side. 49, and the length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the breadth 11 cubits, and it was by steps that it was ascended, and there were pillars by the post, one on this side, and another on that side. And the length of it, of the porch, that which was attached to it, was redemption measured out, and to witness the law was the measurement of it. And the breadth was 11 cubits, and its use was for the law in the beginning to be measured out, and it was by steps, by these ascensions, these ways of ascension. And that word is ma'alah, and what that word means is to ascend. It's that, even in understanding, to go upward, these steps that ascend. And there were pillars by the post, and these pillars we're going to find out by the post, and these are going to be for two examples, one on this side and the other on that side. And that's why these pillars are there, so that they can be made, that we can see these two pillars. And these two pillars are these two columns, and or this thing that is made upright, or these things that are going to be made known. And that's what these two pillars represent. These two things that are made known because they're a witness, see? And they're before the post. They're before these two things that support the house. That's what it's all about, see? Before you enter in, you're going to see these two pillars that God has set up, that God has made known, that God's done this. This is God making a witness, that this is the purpose of it all, that he can make himself known. Witness now the work of God. Witness the work of the law. Witness redemption. Witness grace even in the law. Turn and return. Let's move forward. Chapter 41.